Hi there. Today I'd like to give you some helpful hints on lining up the Balzer Designs matching stamps and stencils. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work with the butterfly stencil, and I'm just going to stencil by pouncing up and down with a cosmetic sponge and some acrylic paint. I'm just going to pounce some paint right through there. Now stencils are double-sided, so I'm actually going to be able to flip the stencil over to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing, this time with some orange, and I'm not changing my sponge, so it'll probably end up going brown on me there. But this design is completely symmetrical, so you'll see that whichever side I work from, the front or the back, the butterfly looks exactly the same, which is great news because it means with the matching stamp, I'm going to be able to stamp on either one and get a great result. Now I'm just making sure the paint is dry before I stamp. Now you want to use a nice heavy black ink. I'll admit that my ink pad is a little bit dry right here, so I may not get the best impression possible. You can also put a piece of foam underneath your work to try to get that stronger image, but I am going to line that stamp up, and because the stamp is clear, I can see through it to line it up, and boom, you can see how the stamp lines up perfectly with the stenciled image. And the same is going to happen with the other butterfly, which was done from the back of the stencil. Now, this one lined up perfectly, as you can see, but not all the stencils work that way. So for instance, the next one we're going to work with has a clear right and wrong. And this is the bird scene stencil. And you can see that word fly. That if you can read that word fly, you're on the quote-unquote correct side. So now I'm using, again, the orange to go through one of the images on this. And then I'm going to flip the stencil over, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the green paint now. And I'm using the two different colors just so that you can see front and back and see what the difference is. And what you'll notice is, of course, this is not symmetrical, so the two designs are pointing in different directions, unlike the butterfly, which was perfect each time. Now I'm going to take one of the matching stamps, and this is a little bird that says fly in the wing. I'm going to take a smaller acrylic block, and I'm going to ink it up, and what you'll see is if I go through the quote-unquote correct way, the way that I could read fly, that bird is going to stamp perfectly right inside that empty space. Now, if I go to try to stamp it, oops, you can see they're pointing opposite ways. It's just not going to work out. So you can still use the stencil and the stamp, you just can't use them together if you go from the other side. So with this one, remember, you want to be able to read the word fly, and then you know that you're using the side that matches the stamps. Now, it gets a little more complicated with the next set I'm going to show you, which is the flower stamps. Now this layers in several different interesting ways. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to layer the stencil. And I've actually written this side on one side, that's the side that matches, and I've made a little mark at the top of the two pieces of the flower that layer together. Now those two marks are just to tell me, as long as I have those marks pointing up or both pointing left or both pointing right, whatever it is, that the two flower pieces are going to match. You'll notice I'm flipping it over and I'm keeping it so that those marks are still essentially pointing up. Now I'm going to stencil on the second part of this flower, and I'm going to cut my sponge because I don't want the orange to be colored with the green. I'd rather have a strong orange so you can really see the contrast. And notice how that second piece of the flower completely covers up the first part. So this is going to match, and I'm using, again, the side that says this side, and I still have that mark pointing up. Now I flip it over to the other side, and it will line up perfectly with the piece that was made using the other side, because stencils are completely reversible, okay? They work either way. These are just a mirror image of each other using this side and the mark or the other side. The problem comes when you try to use the matching stamp. And what you'll see is with the stamp, you'll notice part of it is red. And the reason it's red is that I've colored it with a Copic marker on the back so that it matches that mark at the top of the stencil. That way I know which way to turn the stamp. I'm just showing you the Copic marker that I used to color at the back of it. That way I know exactly how to place the stamp each time and I don't have to think about it. So I'm going to put it on my block, I'm going to ink it up, and you'll see with the stencil that we used this side, that's the one on the left, and I have the red facing up, you'll see it's going to line up perfectly, just like a coloring book or something like that. Boom, completely perfectly nested. Now with that one, I can't get it to line up right because it's a reverse mirror. So I can stamp it on top, and I want to show you what that looks like. And here you'll see, I mean, it just doesn't look quite right. Something's off, something's wrong. So just remember, try to use one side, mark it with a Sharpie, mark your stamp, and you will get easy, perfect results every single time. I hope you learned a little bit about how to layer these stamps and stencils and that you have a great time using them. Thanks so much, and if you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will visit my blog at balzerdesigns.typepad.com.